Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. I want to start off by giving infinite praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to my apostles and elders, a great millstone that rule well, and peace and salutations to the elect men pushing out this word of truth and sincerity. This is the brother Yakanam from the DC Church, and the topic I wanted to touch on today, and Lord's will, this video is entitled, "We Have to Be Kingdom-Minded in Order to Keep the Faith." And the reason why, I entitled that video that is because you have to be in order to not only to not just to get into this thing, but to stay in this thing. You have to be kingdom minded. There's no other way, right? Because when you're in the truth, you're going to come across so many different temptations, so many different things pulling you from different places. And there's going to be a lot of things that come your way in which your integrity may be put on the line, but the question should always, the question that should always come into your mind is this worth the kingdom? And if the answer is no, then you know what move you got to go with, but if you're just doing things haphazardly and your mind is more so on things that have to do with anything that you can acquire in this earth, such as wealth, riches, women, the fake glory that you may get in this world, because we all know that the glory of this world is fake, and this world is not much. The scriptures talks about how this present life is not where much glory abide, right? So, the fake glory that you get, and so on and so forth. If the things that your heart truly desires can be acquired in this world, then you don't have what it takes to make it, right? You're gonna be easily compromised when the time of Jacob's trouble comes. When it comes time to where you're gonna have where you're not gonna have the things that make you comfortable, right? I always say a nigga that'll sell out for $1 billion is a nigga that'll sell out for a loaf of bread in the end times. If you'll sell out for $1 billion, you'll sell out for a loaf of bread given the right circumstances. So that's why you have to be kingdom minded, because the kingdom encompasses everything that Esau cannot bribe you with, that you can't get in this world. You can't get peace in this world, no matter what. And Yahweh Shai is the Prince of Peace. He's coming back with that, and that's ultimately why we have to be kingdom minded, because that's what he's going to inherit when he makes his return. And I want to get a few scriptures, just to drive on that point that we got to be kingdom minded. The things that we want should not be centered around things that we can acquire in this earth. Whether it be starting a family, wealth, riches, finding a wife, anything that is tied into, the happiness of this world. That shouldn't be our main focus. It's going to come with the kingdom. We're going to have the joy of our children. We're going to have families. We're going to have everything that we can possibly get in this world in righteousness. But that's the point. Actually, yeah, that's the point right there. In righteousness, no matter what your heart desires, you gotta want it in righteousness. And the only way to get it in righteousness, is through Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai in the kingdom. Because anything could be corrupted in this time around. When this go around, anything could be corrupted. Your children could be corrupted. Your wife could be corrupted. Everything can be corrupted in this world. And ultimately, if you let it get that far, you could be corrupted. And that's exactly why we have to be kingdom minded. We have to be focusing on the Lord and his righteousness. We got to love righteousness. We got to seek righteousness. Righteousness has to be the driving force for us to make it past that finish line. We got to love righteousness, And I just want to start off, get a few scriptures, and I'm going to close out. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So the things that we see in this world that may give us pleasure and this go around, and that we may want for ourselves in our life, in this go around in this present life, these things are not things that we really should be seeking. you know we should be looking towards the things that which are not seen. Our goals should be centered around the kingdom. Our long-term goals should be centered around being in the righteous kingdom of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and being joint heirs with him. Not only just being in the kingdom, but being joint heirs. And that's ultimately what's going to be the difference between the elect and the normal Israelite in that time. It's the ones that are going to be joint heirs with him. And that's reserved unto his saints, which are the elect. So we can't in order to be a joint heir and get that glory with Yahweh Shai Mashiach, we can't be short-sighted. We got to be far-sighted. We got to be far-sighted in the in terms of the kingdom, not this present rulership, because this present rulership is wicked. There's nothing but pain and misery in this lifetime. There's nothing but pain, misery, and disappointment in this lifetime. Anything that you feel like you want and you need in this lifetime, it'll ultimately let you down at some point. At some point, you will be let down by what you desired in this world. But with Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, there is no letdown. His promises will be fulfilled and be fulfilled perfectly. There isn't any catch-22s. There isn't any letdown. There isn't any trick behind it. It is what it is. Enjoy the kingdom and its righteousness. And then these are the things that you have. These are the things that have to be on your mind 24/7 in order for you to be able to, keep the faith. Because we're coming in. Like the apostle said, this is the year of the sellouts. We have a lot of people that are so short-sighted that they can only think about what's about their present life right now. These are characteristics of men that are not kingdom minded. They gave up on the righteousness of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, and they're trying to make their own righteousness, and they're trying to make their own kingdom in this go around. You can't have it both ways. You have to seek the king. You have to seek the righteousness in the kingdom of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You have to build up. And what we're building up is we're building up spiritually the kingdom right now. We shouldn't be in the mindset of trying to build up anything in this go around. Having long-term plan, just thinking of the future and having long-term plans such as, accomplishing this and that. And of course, you can always think, I'm not saying that you can't work towards something. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But, basically thinking of having a comfortable life here and pushing out doctrines that ease people into being okay with living in this, present life, in this present society, in this present kingdom that we're in right now, And that's why we're looking towards the things which are not seen, because the things that are not seen are eternal, and they come with the power and the glory. And that's what we're looking for, the power, the glory, and the righteousness of the kingdom. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. It says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." And plainly put, we walk by faith and not by sight. This is a walk of faith, and in this walk of faith, you got to have vision. And the vision should be the kingdom. And all its righteousness. You know, we walk by faith and not by sight, because what we see right now is tainted. You know, the things that we may want and this go around is tainted. There's nothing of substance, you know? And that's ultimately what everything in this world is lacking, which makes it not eternal. It lacks substance. You know, there's nothing. It's all vanity and vexation of the spirit. You know, and that's why the scriptures the scriptures encourage you to walk by faith and not by sight, because what we see is of no substance. What we don't see is of the ultimate substance. It is substance itself. You know. Now, this is Colossians chapter 3, verse 1. It says, "For if ye if ye then be risen with Hamashiach, seek those things which are above." So if you be with Yahweh Shai and Mashiach, seek the things that are above, where Hamashiach sitteth on the right hand of the Heavenly Father Yahweh. Set your affection on things above, not on the things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Hamashiach in the Heavenly Father Yahweh. When Hamashiach, who is our life, shall appear, then ye shall appear with him in glory. So we're dead in this world. We have nothing. We have nothing in this world, and we're completely dead to this world. You know, but when Yahweh Shai makes his return, in all his glory with his angels, we'll be partakers in that glory. You know, and we'll appear with him in glory. And that's why the scriptures talk about being joint heirs with him. You know, we're going to inherit something from Hamashiach Yahweh Shai himself. And you got to believe that. And in order to stay in that mindset, you got to be kingdom minded. You have to have that vision. You have to want more. You know, you got to want more than the niceties in life. Like a nice car, a whole lot of money, and fucking women. Like, man, that's cool and all, but man, you got in order to stay grounded, you gotta want more. You gotta desire more. You gotta desire things that this world cannot give you. And those things are things that are gonna be above, not things that you see, you know? And then once those things finally appear, then you'll be glorified, and you'll be able to indulge in everything you've desired in righteousness. You know. Now, this is 1 John chapter 2, verse 15. It says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of the Heavenly Father abideth forever." You know, and this tells you exactly what's in the world. You know, the only thing that is in the world is vanity and vexation of spirit. You know, and the lust of the flesh, the pride, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. You know, and that's why you can't love the world, and that's why you can't look towards things that the world can give you, because that's the only thing that's in the world. You know, so if you're in the mindset of trying to build up something in this world, or compromising your integrity to gain something in this world, well, you fit into that category all too well. You know, having either the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, or the pride of life. You know, but you know that's for those that will compromise their integrity. You know, now this is Matthew chapter 13, verse 43, and it says, "Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whose have ears to hear, let him hear. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a treasure hid in the field. You know, the which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he have and buyeth that field. So it's the kingdom is likened to the kingdom is likened to a treasure hid in a field. So the field is broad, and the thing about the kingdom is that it's only for the ones that are able to see it. It's hidden in the field, but the field is open. The field is plain to everyone. Everyone can, the field is broad. People probably walked past that field 100 times, but did not see the treasure. But a man that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, he saw it, and then he invested everything he had just to get it. And that's exactly what we have to do on this go around. We go into the highways and edges and we talk about all these things, and it's like it doesn't get through to anybody. But through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, certain men's, eyes and ears are open to it, and they're able to see that treasure out on the highways and edges, and they're able to hear and understand. Now, continuing on, it says again, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a merchant man seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of a great price, he sold all he had and bought it. So that's, you got to invest everything that you have just to get this thing. You have to give diligence to make your calling and election sure. You got to be all into it. And you have to ultimately believe that this is the treasure. This is what you're seeking for. It's the righteousness of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Nothing more. It says, which when it is full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered all the good vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Seeing that all these things be dissolved, what manner of going on to moving on to 2 Peter chapter 3 and 11, it says, seeing that all these things be dissolved, because at the end of the day, the reason one of the biggest reasons to be kingdom minded is because we know that this present life passeth away. It's not always going to be like this. We're not always going to be under the thumb of Esau. There's going to be a time where Yahweh Shai Mashiach makes his return. And the day of the Lord is not going to be a pretty day. This is going to be a day of death, destruction, and ultimately deliverance. But whatever side you're on, it is determined by if you kept the faith and were kingdom minded, and you were kingdom minded enough to keep your integrity while things were going on, right? It says, seeing that all these things be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in whole holy conversation and godliness? So what manner of persons ought you to be? The one that kept his integrity or the one that sold out? It says, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens shall being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. So we're looking for a new earth, a new heaven, and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. That's ultimately what we're supposed to be looking for. It's a new heaven and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. We want a righteous lifestyle. We want a righteous community. We want a righteous world. And we want a peaceful world. The kingdom comes with peace. We want those tears to be wiped away. We want Yahweh Shai to come with healing in his wings. We don't want to be sick anymore. We don't want to be subject to having bodies that die. And these are the things that the world cannot give you, no matter how hard that you try. No matter how much they try to sell you with this artificial intelligence bullshit, or their robotics, or or anything that Esau tries to trick you with his craft that may convince the simple that he has the power to do any of these things. We're looking towards things that that can't even be fathomed. New bodies, spiritual power, things that you cannot get from the world, and especially peace. You're never going to get peace on this world. There was never peace on there was never peace in the world as long as Esau was ruling. Evils multiplied when he came into power. So that's exactly why, we can't we got to be kingdom minded, man. Now, this is Daniel chapter 7 verse 27. It says, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. And those saints that are going to be given that, and they're going to be joint heirs. That's known as the elect, and hopefully, we be of that number. If we keep the faith, keep our integrity, and be kingdom minded, look towards the things that we can't acquire on earth. And if you're one of those people, you're not going to be compromised when that time comes, when the RFID microchip is getting implemented. And, you have Jake selling out for a bag of rice, and those are the same spirits that are selling out right now, talking about, the Gentiles can make it, all this other madness, You got to be kingdom minded in order to stay away from shit like that, to not compromise yourself and for any gain that is not of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. With that, I want to say, call law Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Double honors to my apostle and elders, a great millstone, a piece of citations to the elect men pushing out this word of truth and sincerity. Till next time, I want to say shalom.